At the end of the 19th century, in the province of Córdoba in Argentina, Dr. Antonio Nores Martinez and his family were impressed by a great dog, the Perro de Pelea Cordobés, fighting dog of Córdoba. This breed, which as its name states was cruelly used in dog fighting, was extremely valiant, strong and courageous, but lacked speed and owing to its fierceness towards other dogs was unsuitable for hunting. The Perro de Pelea was probably bred from crossing mastiffs, bull terriers, bulldogs and boxers, although there was no precise formula. Dr. Martinez took steps to save the breed from extinction and to create a new one based on it. After careful research into Argentinian hunting dogs, Antonio Martinez planned the profile of a dog suitable for his needs. Calm with its master and ready to attack the enemy, with a good sense of smell like the pointer, capable of hunting pumas, of following tracks, overcoming obstacles and difficult routes. A fighting dog more than a fast dog, as running after a puma or wild boar is less tiring than being able to fight and defeat them. Moreover, courageous with a white coat, allowing it to be easily distinguished in wooded hunting areas. Antonio Nores Martinez must have made improving the sense of smell his first objective. This led to crossbreeding with important prize-winning pointers from France. To add height and weight, elegant Great Danes were used. To maintain temerity, he used the Bull Terrier. The Dogue de Bordeaux was used to strengthen the jaw. English bulldogs and boxers were used for their great intelligence and stability. In addition, the Irish Wolfhound was added to these crosses for its speed and strength, the Pyrenean Mastiff for its height and white coat, and the Bull Mastiff for its important ancestral age. Unfortunately, Antonio Nores Martinez did not initially take any accurate notes. When breeding finally reached the level in which the dogs showed a common resemblance, single families or strains were established. Subsequently, those to be trained and crossbred with one another were selected within these families. In 1928, Antonio Nores Martinez presented the standard of the Dogo Argentino. On the 2nd December 1956, Dr. Martinez was killed while on a hunt. From then on, his brother Agustin Nores Martinez continued to breed the dogs. After Antonio's death, the Dogo became extremely rare in Córdoba. Agustin strengthened the breed with dogs from La Pampa and San Luis. He later changed the location of the breeding kennels, transferring them to Esquel in the province of Chubut. On 20th March 1964, he obtained recognition of the Dogo Argentino as a breed from the FCA, Argentinian Dog Federation. The FCI, Fédération Cynologique Internationale, gave its approval on the 31st of July 1973. The name of Agustin's kennels, Del Chubut, was a guarantee of the originality of all Dogos. On the 3rd of February 1954, Agustin Martinez started to register his dogs, and at the time of his death, he had registered a total of 1,031 puppies. So the Chubut dogs appear in many genealogies and are the parents of champions like Agalas, Gladiator del Chubut, and Nanduti del Chubut, Tilcara, Facundo del Chubut, and Mahuida del Chubut, Taco del Totoral, Mancho del Chubut, and Chala del Chubut, and lastly, Taco's sister, Tala. The famous Mayoko del Chubut was the first Dogo to be officially registered by the FCA as number 1. Therefore, just as the champions listed above, his name appears on many pedigrees. For the Dogo, mating, gestation and birth are entirely natural events which only rarely require man's attention. Bitches normally give birth to between 6 and 9 puppies. These are always fed by the mother and weaned at a considerably early age, around 20 to 25 days old, because as they grow rapidly in the first few months, it is advisable to supplement their mother's milk with other foods to ensure there are no deficiencies in their growth. Besides weaning, socializing is also extremely important. The young dogo is particularly sensitive, and a great deal of care must be taken with it. The breeder's work is fundamental, as he must form the character of puppies from an early age, teaching them to socialize with the external world and above all with man. Daily contact with children and masters allows the young dogo to grow in optimum conditions, so that one day it may give its best. If it is isolated, it becomes a fearful dog, with all the risks and dangers that this behavior may entail. Experience has shown that the best age to remove puppies from the litter is when they're about 2 months old, as this is the age in which the puppy best adapts to new situations without psychological problems. From this age, it is extremely important to gradually get puppies used to all events: the lead, the car, the presence of other animals, walks in built-up areas, in crowds, etc. When the young dogo goes wrong, it must be told off gently and firmly, as violence and shouting could traumatize the dog and have a negative influence on its future temperament. Being a sensitive dog, it is also very affectionate, and if this affection is reciprocated and it is trained correctly, as an adult it will repay its master's faith, becoming one with him, able to understand different situations and react appropriately. Following the socialization phase, when the dog is about 6 or 7 months old, it can be kept away from visitors and frequent meetings to substitute its natural friendliness towards man with a pinch of suspicion. As Hauk says, the dog must always be where its master is. This ideal situation allows it to adapt to all situations. Large spaces, small gardens, or even apartments are all ideal environments for the dogo as long as it has close contact with its master, his family, and especially with the children, to whom it becomes extremely close, even if at times they try its patience sorely. Physical training is extremely important, especially if the dog lives in an apartment, and should start about 9 or 10 months old. This will greatly benefit the physical and mental growth of the dogo, a lively dog that needs to release its energy. How should those wishing to buy a Dogo Argentino go about choosing a puppy? Firstly, contact a reliable breeder who works with the standards described, and consequently will be able to recommend a puppy suitable for your requirements. The breeder must have 2 precise objectives when selecting the breed. Firstly, to select dogs for their docile nature, which are at the same time resolute, affectionate and dignified, well-balanced and attentive, faithful and incorruptible, courageous and aggressive in times of need. Secondly, to respect the breed standard. Some important advice should be followed when choosing a puppy. 1. It should not have blue eyes, as this would prevent it from being bred. 2. It should have no black marks on its body. 3. It should not be too timid. 4. When choosing a male, check that its testicles are well descended. Clearly, this also depends on the age of the puppy. Unfortunately, man's foolish behavior can at times bring out the dogo's latent hereditary aggressiveness, causing it to do harm. This is why the Dogo Argentino often attracts the wrong kind of people who wish to compensate for their weak character through aggressive behavior. For this reason, breeders have a great deal of responsibility in breeding the dogo selectively. The morphological classification of this dog is Molossian, mesomorphic, brachycephalic. General appearance: Molossian, normal type, mesomorphic with long limbs. It remains within desirable proportions without gigantic dimensions. Its appearance is harmonic and sturdy due to its powerful muscles, which stand out under the compact and elastic skin adhering to the body, thanks to relatively tight subcutaneous tissue. It walks quietly but firmly, showing its intelligence and quick responsiveness and revealing its permanent, happy, natural disposition. It is faithful and loving, strikingly white, with physical virtues that make it a real athlete. The height at the withers is the same as the height at the croup. The depth of the thorax is 50% of the height at the withers. The head has average proportions, looks strong and powerful, without abrupt angles or distinct chiseling. The upper line is slightly concave, convex. Its profile is convex at the skull and slightly concave at the muzzle. The muzzle is the same length as the skull. The skull is compact, convex in the front to back and transverse direction. Its zygomatic arches protrude from the skull, forming a large temporal cavity. The stop is averagely defined as a transition from the convex skull region to the slightly concave foreface. From the side, it shows a definite profile due to the prominence of the superciliary ridges. The nose is black with ample nostrils. It is slightly elevated forwards in relation to the concave profile of the muzzle. From the side, the front line is straight and perpendicular in relation to the maxillary edge, or slightly projected forward. The muzzle is strong, slightly longer than its depth, well developed in width, with sides slightly converging. The lips are moderately thick, short and tight. Preferably the edges of the lips have black pigmentation. The jaws are strong and well adapted, no under or overshot mouth. The jaws should be slightly and homogeneously convergent. They ensure maximum bite capacity. Large, well-developed teeth firmly implanted in line, clean and without caries. A complete dentition is recommended. Teeth must not be overshot. The eyes are dark brown or hazel-coloured, protected by lids preferably with black pigmentation, almond-shaped, set at medium height. The overall expression should be alert and lively, although it often becomes firm and unyielding, particularly in males. The ears are attached high on the head, set well apart due to the width of the skull. According to the original use of the dog, they should be cropped and erect, triangular in shape with a length not exceeding 50% of the front edge of the auricle of the natural ear. Without being cropped, they are average length, broad, thick, flat and rounded at the tip, covered with smooth hair, slightly shorter than on the rest of the body. In the natural position they hang down, covering the back of the cheeks. When the dog is alert, they may be half erect. The neck is of medium length, strong and erect, well muscled with a slightly convex upper line. It has a truncated cone shape. The length of the body, from the point of the shoulder to the point of the buttock, exceeds the height at the withers by about 10%. The top line is level with the withers, and the tips of the shoulder and of the croup are at the same height, forming the highest points. The chest is broad and deep, with the tip of the breastbone level with the tip of the shoulder joint, scapular-humeral joint, and the sternal line of the thorax level with the elbow line. Large thorax providing maximum respiratory capacity with long and moderately curved ribs, which join the breastbone at the height of the elbow line. The tail is set at average height, forming a 45-degree angle in relation to the top line. Sabre-shaped, thick and long, reaching to the hocks but no further. Hangs naturally at rest. When the dog is in action, it is slightly raised above the top line and moves constantly from side to side. When trotting, it is carried level with or slightly higher than the top line. The forelegs as a whole form a sturdy and solid structure of bones and muscles proportionate to the size of the animal. Viewed from the front or in profile, the forelegs are straight and parallel. The hind legs have medium angulation. As a whole, they are strong, sturdy and parallel, creating the image of the great power their function requires. They ensure the proper impulsion and determine the dog's characteristic gait. The gait is agile and easy, changing noticeably when the dog shows an interest in something into an erect position with quick reflexes, typical of this breed. Calm walk, extended trot, with a good front extension and powerful rear propulsion. At the gallop, the dog shows all of its energy, developing its full power. The colour is completely white. One black or dark coloured patch around the eye may be admitted, providing that it does not cover more than 10% of the head. The height at the withers ranges from 62 to 68 centimetres in dogs and from 60 to 65 centimetres in bitches. The Dogo is a dog with a strong and resolute character, but also and above all intelligent, faithful, obedient and ready to sacrifice its life to defend its master. A dog suitable for the family and an unparalleled companion for children. Extremely patient, the perfect babysitter. I challenge anyone to bother a child with a Dogo as a friend. A proper diet is essential to your dog's correct and full development, so as to be able to keep it in perfect shape and health. Some people believe that dogs can eat virtually anything, and therefore give their dogs all kinds of food, often recycling the leftovers from their own meals. This is a serious mistake, since what may be digestible to us and a source of nourishing substances often cannot be digested by dogs or is unable to be metabolized. A final piece of advice. It sometimes happens that a dog loses its appetite and refuses food for 1 or even 2 days. This is a normal occurrence, and in these cases it is a good rule not to always leave a full bowl of food down for the dogs. Instead, the food should be removed after a short time. Present the bowl of food again at the following mealtime after having changed its contents. In the event of loss of appetite lasting for more than 2 days without the presence of side symptoms, or if it is accompanied from the outset by symptoms of general suffering or exhaustion, consult your vet immediately. It is very likely to be an ordinary ailment, but in this case it is not worth taking a risk, and it is better to seek reassurance from an expert. We will now begin with a brief description of a dog's digestive apparatus. As in all carnivores, the stomach is of large dimensions, whereas the intestine is relatively short. Initial digestion in the stomach takes from 3 to 8 hours, then the food passes into the intestine where the nourishing substances are assimilated, which are then transmitted to all the organs through the blood. The stomach's large capacity and the slow digestion process allow abundant meals to be eaten at fairly spaced out intervals. Naturally, to keep dogs in excellent health, it is necessary to provide them with all the elements that they require, that is, proteins, carbohydrates, fats, vitamins and minerals. When dogs were carnivorous predators, these elements were assimilated by dogs through the animals that they hunted and which were generally herbivores. Afterwards, civilization has led it to feed differently, but it will always be necessary to provide dogs with the appropriate substances. Dogs produce energy from their diet, which is then used for the maintenance of vital functions and movement. The more active a dog is, the greater the energy intake it will require. Without going into detailed food studies that would require a specific treatise, we can simply say that dogs particularly require fats or lipids, both of animal and vegetable origin, and it is these which provide the necessary energy and which accumulate in the organism to provide possible energy reserves. The proteins that make up the large part of the animal's body are also essential. These are indispensable to the formation of all the tissues, especially muscles, and also constitute the basis of hormones and the blood. They therefore represent an irreplaceable element in a proper diet, even more so in puppies which must build their bodies. Sources of protein are meat, cheese, eggs and fish, which are well digested by dogs, and also soybean flour, peanuts, legumes, which are however digested with more difficulty. An excess of proteins is harmful and can lead to various kinds of disorders, depending on the conditions. Carbohydrates are not essential to a dog's diet. They are, however, very useful at the end of pregnancy. Starch, which is the most important carbohydrate present in the diet, is poorly digested by dogs and needs to undergo preliminary treatment such as cooking, flaking, etc. This is why if you use pasta or rice as a food for your canine friend, it needs to be boiled for a long time to eliminate a large part of the starch present. Fibre, which often accompanies carbohydrates, is especially useful in the diet of sedentary dogs, since it helps to prevent constipation, given the speed with which it passes through the alimentary tract. Vitamins are also necessary, even if in infinitesimal amounts. They are found in many vegetables and are synthesized by herbivorous animals. This is the reason why when a carnivore kills its prey, generally herbivorous, it immediately feeds on the intestines, where there are residues of partially digested vegetable matter. This also explains why, to your considerable annoyance, your dog often eats the excrement of herbivorous animals as soon as it gets the chance. A build-up of vitamins can be harmful, and therefore, if you use pre-prepared feed, you should carefully check the substances contained in the feed before adding supplements, and if in doubt, consult your vet. Minerals are essential to the diet and are supplied by foods. Deficiency in certain minerals such as calcium, iron, potassium, sodium, copper and others can cause abnormal growth in puppies, also with serious consequences and general debility in adult dogs, or the onset of problems of varying degrees. There is excellent pre-packed feed on the market, both moist and dry types, that provide all the necessary elements for initial growth, and to then keep your dog in top shape. Even if you use pre-packed feed, you will, however, be able to give some fruit or other food which your dog will find tasty, taking care not to exaggerate and not to give harmful substances such as sweets, fried foods, rice dishes, fresh or soft doughy bread that are extremely harmful and which can also have very serious long-term consequences. Instead, if you want to prepare the food yourself, then follow the advice of the breeder who sold you the dog, or your vet's advice. As a general rule, it is worth knowing that meat, ideally beef, is essential. If pork meat is given, it must be well cooked in order to avoid infections. Poultry, meat and rabbit are also fine, provided that they are completely boneless. Giblets, although less rich in nourishing substances, are well liked. Fish is an excellent food and is best given cooked. It is particularly advisable for low-fat diets for dogs with digestive or skin problems. It is also an excellent means with which to make the diet less monotonous. Eggs are appetizing and supply many nourishing substances. They are particularly advisable for puppies and suckling females. Yolks can be consumed raw, whereas the albumin should always be cooked. Fats, such as lard and oil, are always readily accepted by dogs and are particularly useful during moments of work or physical effort. 1 or 2 teaspoonfuls of oil added to food are always beneficial. Dry bread is a good energy source, but it must be well dried. It is also useful for cleaning your dog's teeth and for keeping them in good condition. Pasta and rice are very useful, but as we have already said, they should be cooked very well to eliminate starch, which is not easily digested. Fruit and vegetables, even if not essential, can be given to dogs that appreciate them. However, the nutritional intake is very slight and is only worthy of note for the intake of roughage. Needless to say, the final element which is essential to nutrition is water. Fresh and plentiful, that must be available at all times. If in a bowl, it should be changed as often as possible, especially during hot spells. It is absolutely indispensable to dogs that eat dry and not moistened feed. The final aspect of the diet to take into consideration is the frequency of meals. From birth, puppies have their meals by following times that are spaced out by the instinct of the mother and the other siblings in the litter. The feeds are gradually reduced during weaning and are integrated with suitable foods that should be recommended by an experienced breeder or a vet. Between 1 and 3 months of age, weaned puppies should have 4 meals at regular intervals. From 4 to 7 or 8 months, the number of meals can be reduced to 3, further reduced to 2 meals at 8 to 18 months, and afterwards, if desired, down to just 1 meal a day, even if it is not harmful to continue with 2. On the contrary, this is recommended by certain individuals. The decision to have a dog is an important one to make, which must be thought over carefully without ignoring some useful basic information. The vaccination prophylaxis must always be carried out with utmost care to try and protect not only the puppies but also adult dogs from the most common illnesses. Generally speaking, a puppy leaves the breeder after having been vaccinated at around 40 to 45 days with a triad vaccine against canine distemper, infectious hepatitis and parvovirus. A second quadrivalent vaccination, also including leptospirosis as well as the 3 ailments already mentioned, is generally carried out after 3 weeks. An additional vaccination can be carried out after a month, again quadrivalent, to be then replaced annually throughout the dog's lifespan. A dog can be vaccinated only if it is in perfect health and thus also free from endoparasites. Appropriate antihelminthic treatment must be carried out normally twice a year. Different types of ascarids exist, each of which specifically infests an animal species, man included, and there is practically no risk of zoonosis, that is, transmission of the infestation from dog to man. It is important that dogs are also kept free from ectoparasites, that is, those that live on dogs such as fleas and mites, both of which are hematophages. Moreover, fleas act as an intermediate host for a type of taenia. Numerous specific products exist to free dogs from these annoying parasites, but one must not forget to also carry out appropriate disinfesting operations in the areas where dogs live. The arrival of spring exacerbates the problems caused by undesired guests, the mites that arrive along with the initial spring warmth. A run in the meadows through woods, perhaps near groups of farmhouses and farms where there is livestock, can result in our canine friend returning home with mites. Not necessarily, since some factors may exist which make a dog more or less susceptible, also depending on its general state of health, that can influence whether or not a dog will pick up these acari. They represent a grave danger to dogs because they transmit pyroplasmosis, a serious infection carried by protozoa of the Pyroplasma species that affects pets and also causes death if not discovered and treated in time. The symptoms in its acute form are represented by fever, also sthenic, asthenia, pallor of the apparent mucous membranes, and hyperchromia of the urine that can also become brown-black in colour. In advanced cases, jaundice and a comatose state which could possibly result in death. The mites suck blood for 2 or 3 weeks, and once having mated, the female then detaches itself from the animal and deposits the eggs a week later. The deposited larvae, recognizable by their reddish colour, are minute, like tiny beads. They also look for a host on which to climb, sucking blood for several days. They then detach themselves and after a few days change into octopede nymphs of bluish colour. They become adults towards August or September. With the arrival of autumn, the adults immediately upon hatching then lay dormant in cracks in the ground until the next spring. In general, the mites attach themselves to less thick skin such as ears, armpits, groin, between the digits of the paws. Therefore, as a precautionary measure, we should always examine our canine friends for signs of any undesired guests after a walk in the open. Correct dog hygiene starts with coat care. For most breeds, but not all, it is advisable to brush the coat almost daily in order to remove the hairs that have reached the end of their life cycle. The coat of many breeds requires specialized grooming, which is to be carried out several times a year. One must not generalize about the fact that a shiny coat is a sign of good health, since in some breeds it should have a tendency to be dull. Dogs must not be washed too often so as not to damage the protective function of the sebaceous glands. The skin in normal conditions should always look clean, without dandruff deposits or desquamations of any kind. Should cutaneous alterations appear such as eczema, alopecia areas, i.e. hair loss and failure of hair regrowth, thickening or the appearance of abnormal pigmentation, consult your vet without delay. Cutaneous alterations due to mycosis or mange are spread by contagion, but only in the case of particularly debilitated animals and when one fails to observe the most basic hygienic rules. Claws must also be checked periodically. These are normally worn down in dogs that undergo normal physical activities, but it may be necessary to shorten them with the aid of a special tool. Oral hygiene should never be overlooked, and especially in miniature breeds, tartar removal is necessary from time to time because it can cause pyorrhea and bad breath. Certain bones are available on the market that, besides constituting a treat for our four-legged friend, act as a natural toothbrush. In puppies aged between 4 and 6 months, the deciduous dentition is gradually replaced by the permanent one. Regular inspections of the mouth are advisable during this period to check that everything is okay. The existence of cardiopulmonary filariasis, a serious disease caused by a nematode parasite, Dirofilaria immitis, or the blood and heart, has been known for several centuries, as has been known the important transmission mechanism of the disease by the mosquito for about a century. However, it is only in the last 20 years, due to the rapid diffusion of filariasis in dogs kept for company and work dogs, that research institutes, pharmaceutical companies and vets have paid increasing attention to the problem. It is therefore important that dog owners are also aware, even if in general terms, of the existence and phenomena of the parasitosis. The transmission of the disease occurs through the mosquito's sting, which takes up the filaria larvae by sucking blood from an infected subject to then inoculate them into another healthy dog. The high contagiousness of the parasitosis is therefore easily understandable, in addition to its seasonality, spring-summer. During a period of around 6 months, the larvae in the dog's blood grow into adult worms that are situated in the heart and pulmonary arteries. In turn, the adult filariae produce small larvae called microfilariae, which will live in the blood. The dogs most affected are obviously those that spend more or less long periods outside, hence gun dogs, work dogs, and those that sleep in the open. The damage induced by the presence of the filariae is of considerable seriousness for that which concerns the cardiocirculatory function, and initially shown as a tendency for dogs to tire easily and the presence of a cough or respiratory dysfunction. The vet giving treatment at this stage will perform different clinical and laboratory tests that will confirm the presence of the parasites. On the contrary, the damage caused by chronic cardiopulmonary filariasis is extremely serious. The alteration of the cardiocirculatory function is often accompanied by liver and kidney lesions and a state of generalized hypersensitivity in the whole organism. The prevention programs that have only been practicable for a few years thanks to the use of specific new drugs are simple to carry out and do not involve toxicity risks for dogs. After having carried out a test to ensure the absence of a previous infestation, the oral administration of a medicine once a month for the duration of the entire hot season will give dogs effective protection, also if they are stung by an infected mosquito. To these crosses for its speed and strength, the Pyrenean Mastiff for its height and white coat, and the Bull Mastiff for its important ancestral age. Unfortunately, Antonio Nores Martinez did not initially take any accurate notes. When breeding finally reached the level in which the dogs showed a common resemblance, single families or strains were established. Subsequently, those to be trained and crossbred with one another were selected within these families. In 1928, Antonio Nores Martinez presented the standard of the Dogo Argentino, on the second allowing it to be easily distinguished in wooded hunting areas. Antonio Nores Martinez must have made improving the sense of smell his first objective. This led to crossbreeding with important prize-winning pointers from France. To add height and weight, elegant Great Danes were used. To maintain temerity, he used the Bull Terrier. The Dogue de Bordeaux was used to strengthen the jaw. English bulldogs and boxers were used for their great intelligence and stability. In addition, the Irish Wolfhound was added in December 1956. Dr. Martinez was killed while on a hunt. From then on, his brother Agustin Nores Martinez continued to breed the dogs. After Antonio's death, the Dogo became extremely rare in Córdoba. Agustin strengthened the breed with dogs from La Pampa and San Luis. He later changed the location of the breeding kennels, transferring them to Esquel in the province of Chubut. On 20th March 1964, he obtained recognition of the Dogo Argentino as a breed from the FCA, Argentinian Dog Federation. The FCI, Dr. Martinez took steps to save the breed from extinction and to create a new one based on it. After careful research into Argentinian hunting dogs, Antonio Martinez planned the profile of a dog suitable for his needs. Calm with its master and ready to attack the enemy, with a good sense of smell like the pointer, capable of hunting pumas, of following tracks, overcoming obstacles and difficult routes. A fighting dog more than a fast dog, as running after a puma or wild boar is less tiring than being able to fight and defeat them. Moreover, courageous with a white coat. At the end of the 19th century, in the province of Córdoba in Argentina, Dr. Antonio Nores Martinez and his family were impressed by a great dog, the Perro de Pelea Cordobés, fighting dog of Córdoba. This breed, which as its name states was cruelly used in dog fighting, was extremely valiant, strong and courageous, but lacked speed and owing to its fierceness towards other dogs was unsuitable for hunting. The Perro de Pelea was probably bred from crossing mastiffs, bull terriers, bulldogs and boxers, although there was no precise formula.